The battle for Bakhmut continues, with both sides claiming the other has suffered extensive losses and releasing footage of the fighting.
The US, UK and Australian premiers announce a new defence plan for Asia-Pacific, complete with nuclear-powered submarines.
Rubbish piles up in the streets of Paris as bin collectors reject a bill in the French Parliament which could change the retirement age.
Fierce fighting is raging for control of the center of Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine, the site of the longest and bloodiest battle since the start of Moscow's invasion. Both Kyiv and Moscow are claiming hundreds of enemy troops have been killed in the last 24 hours. And they are releasing footage of the death and destruction, like these images that reportedly show the aftermath of a Ukrainian strike.
Дуже жорстко на Сході, дуже болісно. Треба знищити військову потугу ворога, і ми знищимо. Білогорівка і Мар'їнка, Авдіївка і Бахмут, Вугледар і Кам'янка та усі інші місця, де зараз вирішується, яким буде наше майбутнє, де виборюється наше майбутнє усіх українців. Я дякую.
Meanwhile, Finland's prime minister has said that she would consider discussing sending fighter jets to Ukraine. A comment that has come as a surprise to her government.
On selvää, että Ukraina tarvitsee entistä raskaampaa kalustusta ja on hyvä, että yhdessä eurooppalaisittain kumppanimaiden kanssa on voitu sopia näiden panssarivaunujen lähettämisestä, mutta kyllä se seuraava iso kysymys on ilman muuta hävittäjät ja ilmapuolustus laajemminkin. Ukraina tulee tarvitsemaan tätä aseistusta, tällaista kalustoa, jotta se voi työntää venäläiset joukot ulos alueeltansa.
For months, Ukrainian forces have been asking for heavy equipment, such as these Leopard 2 tanks in Spain. 55 Ukrainian soldiers have completed a 4-week military training there, and Madrid is now sending 6 of the German-made battle tanks to Ukraine.
The trial has begun in Moscow of the latest Russian opposition activist to face charges over speaking out against the Kremlin. Vladimir Kara-Murza is accused of treason for spreading what prosecutors claim was fake news about the Russian army. He faces 25 years in jail.
В этом случае очевидно, что власти решили провести суд над Кара-Мурзой в космическом темпе, максимально быстро. Следующее заседание уже в четверг, 16 числа. И в том, каков будет финальный приговор, к великому сожалению, сомнений уже нет.
At the European Parliament, a prominent Liberal MEP spoke out against Moscow's treatment of Kara-Murza and other Kremlin opponents.
I think that this Parliament, during this session, has to stand by them and to put back on the table the liberation of Alexei Navalny and with them of all political prisoners. As Russia's Vladimir Kara-Murza, who is in prison, Alexei Gorinov and many others arrested for speaking out against the war in Ukraine.
Kara-Murza is a Western-educated activist who was a close associate of the assassinated opposition leader Boris Nemtsov. He's among several critics of Vladimir Putin to have been detained since Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Australia is to buy as many as 5 nuclear-powered submarines, then build a new model with US and British technology. It's an ambitious plan to bulk up Western muscle across the Asia-Pacific in the face of a rising China. It's all part of the recently formed alliance between the UK, the US and Australia, known as AUKUS. Their leaders met in San Diego to unveil their plans. At the subsequent press conference, President Biden was keen to make one point clear.
These subs are powered, not nuclear armed subs. They're nuclear powered, not nuclear armed. Australia is a proud non-nuclear weapon state and is committed to stay that way.
For the first time ever, it will mean 3 fleets of submarines working together across both the Atlantic and Pacific, keeping our oceans free, open and prosperous for decades to come.
The scale, complexity and economic significance of this investment is akin to the creation of the Australian automotive industry in the post-World War II period.
Under the deal, Australian Navy personnel will be embedded at US and UK submarine bases to gain the necessary skills to use the submarines. From 2027, the US and UK will base a small number of nuclear subs at a base in Perth, Western Australia, before Canberra buys the first 3 American Virginia-class submarines in the early 2030s.
Waste collectors in France have been on strike for a week, standing up against proposed pension reforms. Rubbish is piling up in the streets, and tourists visiting the City of Light are starting to notice the smell.
Je trouvais l'odeur est très désagréable quand on passe devant et quand il faut enjamber. On est passé de rue où vraiment il fallait faire du slalom entre des poubelles, c'est pas trop chouette.
So we're having a lot of strikes in England as well, and even though it does spoil a lot of the view and the smell, I do support the strikes. Retirement and pay is, important to a lot of people.
Bien sûr, Paris sans poubelle, ce serait beaucoup plus joli, plus élégant, mais on comprend aussi la vie, l'économie, les conflits sociaux, des malentendus, etc.
The pension reform bill is in its final stages in the French Parliament, and there could be a decision this week. But in several cities in France, workers would prefer to throw the reform out with their rubbish.
Cyclone Freddy has killed more than 100 people and injured dozens in Malawi and Mozambique after slamming into southern Africa for the second time in a month. Freddy is one of the strongest cyclones ever recorded in the southern hemisphere and could be the longest-lasting tropical one. It first developed near Australia and has travelled the entire Indian Ocean. Freddy's destructive winds and heavy rains have demolished roads and houses, sweeping them away with their occupants inside.
U.S. President Joe Biden has approved a controversial oil and gas drilling project in Alaska, despite widespread opposition because of its likely environmental and climate impacts. It's known as the Willow Oil Project. The drilling area lies within the Arctic Circle. Activists have dubbed it a carbon bomb. Supporters of the Willow Project say it will create local investment and thousands of jobs. Biden has imposed limits on oil and gas drilling in 16 million acres of Alaska in the compromise move.
The man who revolutionised the high jump in athletics has died after a short illness. Dick Fosbury was the first to leap backwards over the bar using a technique which became known as the Fosbury flop. It was at the Mexico Olympics in 1968 that the American took everyone by surprise. He cleared 2.24 metres on his third attempt to win the gold medal. What started as his own idea at school went on to change the sport forever, with the Fosbury flop becoming accepted worldwide.
These lush green fields in the Spanish village of Mentreda, some 60 kilometres from Madrid, support several farms and the growing agri-tourism industry. But it won't be long until these vast spaces are dotted with countless mirrors. In the municipality of Toledo alone, solar panel parks will take up 1/3 of the land. On one hand, it's good news for environmentalists. However, others are not so happy.
¿Qué nos van a hacer? ¿Destrozar nuestro campo, nuestra forma de vida agrícola de muchos pueblos? ¿Para qué? Para que otras industrias tengan la energía a cambio de destrozar todo el campo de algunas comarcas de España.
More than 200 citizens' associations have united against a renewables model that they claim will destroy the landscape and in return create hardly any jobs. But the government gave the green light for 182 macro wind and solar farms to be built from the beginning of 2022.
Se calcula que España deberá instalar unos 200 gigavatios de generación eléctrica renovable para cumplir con sus objetivos de neutralidad en carbono. La cuestión es cómo compaginar este modelo energético con la preservación del medio ambiente y del entorno rural.
Owners of the Viñejos del Rio Tajo estate are carrying out a pilot project together with renewable energy giants Iberdrola, which will allow wine production continue as planned and help save the planet. An algorithm analyses the vine's needs in real time and moves the panels to shade and protect them from the heat. growing concern after Spain experienced its hottest summer on record last year.
En caso de que esta convivencia de los paneles con las viñas fuera exitosa, pues se podría replicar en cientos de miles de hectáreas por toda nuestra geografía.
These so-called agrovoltaic technologies could become a primary solution in the transition towards sustainable agriculture. In the port city of Almera alone, 31 million megawatt hours of energy could be produced across its 40,000 hectares of greenhouses. Held in check in the first leg, Manchester City will be looking to secure their place in the quarter-finals of the Champions League in their last 16 second leg at home to RB Leipzig. Since their draw in Germany 3 weeks ago, Jack Grealish and his teammates are second in the Premier League. While the citizens are favourites to win at Etihad Stadium, a defeat for Pep Guardiola's men could seal their exit from the competition, as Kevin De Bruyne warns his teammates.
I think we've played them now 3 times in the last two years already, and I think we already know what kind of team it is. It's a high energy, high quality, intensive team, and you know they have that Red Bull DNA where they play a lot of players in the middle. They're very aggressive. They know how to make it a tough game, and I think they have a lot of quality.
In the other Champions League match of the evening, FC Porto face Inter Milan after a 1-0 defeat in the first leg. Tonight they host Inter and will be trying to regain the advantage. The Portuguese club have lost only 3 times at home this season, while Simone Inzaghi's men have gone 3 games without a win.